Although we didn't have as many points as the Bills did when time ran out, this was actually one of the best team efforts by the Packers thus far this season. Can we carry this positive momentum into Detroit this Sunday? Join us and other listeners to find out, all on this edition of your Packers Fan Podcast.
Well, hey there, everybody. I'm Scott Clark with the Gaming Outsider Podcast, and even though 4 losses in a row is really tough to swallow, I'm doing my best to look at the positives from this week's hard-fought battle in Highmark Stadium. Here's to hoping that the Packers have finally hit rock bottom and have nothing but improvements to look forward to.
Wayne Henderson back with you, and I didn't sleep well. I dreamt that I was camped next to the railroad tracks. Those blasted horns kept waking me up all night long. It's almost as annoying as a Vikings horn. This is episode 261 of your Packers Fan Podcast. We're going to share some highs and lows from the loss in Buffalo and preview next Sunday's Packers at Lions game, capped off with Scott's keys to a Packers victory.
And as always, we share more of your amazing listener feedback, and we've also got the weekly poll question results as well. So let's get right into it. Even though it was a loss, we've got some highlights to talk about because some good things did happen. Right off the bat, that first drive, we stopped the Bills with a 3-and-out. It seemed like things weren't going to be as bad as we had thought with that opening drive. I was like, all right, we stopped them. Let's go. That was kind of the end of the super positive things, but it was good to see that stop. The number 1 offense in the league, 3-and-out. Indeed.
A momentum builder, we were hoping. Even if it didn't continue through the entire game, it was still momentum and momentous.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was so good.
And another positive, we had a couple beautiful touchdown passes from Rodgers. The first one was to Romeo Doubs. It was about 19 yards. I'd cut the lead in half at that point. Man, he had some great hands, secured the ball, got down, really kind of gave a spark of momentum for a minute there. That was awesome. And then there was another one later on that was even prettier to Samori Toure, who I'm ashamed to say, I said, who the hell is Toure? I don't remember that name. Apparently it was his first NFL catch, and it was a good one. He really got wide open, and I loved watching that play. I felt like the Aaron Rodgers of old in terms of a long pass, so that was cool.
It was also cool that he trusted Samori Toure. I believe he's our 7th-round pick, and to get him his first ever NFL touchdown in a regular season game was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of highlights, our leaders in the Bills game, Aaron Rodgers was 19 for 30 for 203 yards and 2 touchdowns, which I mentioned just above. Obviously, Romeo Doubs had a touchdown pass, as well as 4 receptions for 62 total yards. And Aaron Jones with 20 rushes for 143 yards. Well, that was very much needed. Where has that been the last 4 games?
That's the question we're all asking. That's almost twice as many carries as he had last week. And Aaron Jones was definitely the Packers MVP this week to me. And A.J. Dillon had some great runs in the second half to help out as well. And overall, this game, Scott, seemed like a huge step in the right direction. For the most part, the Packers played a pretty respectable game on defense. They were pretty solid on offense, especially the run game and special teams. Since I can't think of anything that really stands out, I'll call that a win.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just to kind of echo what you said, just seeing them utilize that running game much more this week. I mean, it's almost to the point where Rodgers kind of has to. I mean, sure, both of the touchdowns were in the air, but a lot of that yardage was eaten up on the ground. I saw one series where they ran the ball 3 times in a row for a first down. Can we get some more of that, please? Just run. Even if you get down to 3 yards, give it to Dillon. Let him power through, because even when he's it gets manhandled down there on the line, he somehow finds a way to push through. I want to see more of that run game, because that's definitely our strength right now, with especially with all the injuries on the receiving front.
Absolutely. And look at how well our run game works when we don't abandon it. And obviously, having David Bakhtiari back in there this week might have helped that a little bit, but whatever caused it, like you said, keep doing it. And Rasul Douglas, that interception, but Then again, we gave it right back off of a tip ball, so that was short-lived. But then shortly thereafter, Jair Alexander, another interception. And I believe we did actually capitalize on that one. So that was fantastic. And it's just good to see our defense stepping up.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we do have some lowlights to talk about as well. Rodgers was sacked a couple times. Really hate seeing that, especially on third down. It just, that offensive line is it's not the greatest. And, and then seeing Rodgers' reaction, I'm really getting tired of the eye rolls and these long, heavy sighs that he does whenever anything bad happens. But
I just look away when he does that. I just like, whatever, Aaron, you do you. I'm going to watch the rest of the team till the next play.
Yeah.
And, we came away with several new injuries, and hopefully they're not very serious. It's too early in the week to know what the designation is, but Preston Smith got his arm injured. Devondre Campbell had a knee injury, so I'm really nervous about that one. And Watson got a concussion on that stellar run. Well, I believe it was a reception, and then he ran, but you could just tell instantly the way he was tackled and hit and bent that he was hurt.
Yeah, his head kind of went down, like his chin was all the way down to his chest. He was kind of wrapped up. It looked very, very painful. The one that really stung was Quay Walker getting penalized for unsportsmanlike conduct. He unfortunately shoved one of the coaches from the Bills coaching staff, which is definitely a big no-no. You just do not do anything. And he was ejected from the game. I feel like that just kind of deflated any possibility at that point because all the frustration was already there. And then that happening just it was like one step forward, two steps back kind of situation.
Yeah, we just couldn't catch a break. And I can understand Quay getting a penalty for it, maybe even some sort of small fine. But personally, I think being ejected is BS.
No, he needed it. I think that was well deserved. I really do. Especially if you go back and look at it, because it looked like the coach was, preventing him from, rolling into his ankles or something like that. And then he started to help him up. I think that Walker kind of took that as like he was, shoving him back onto the field or something like that and took it the wrong way. And when you're in full pads, you do not do anything with a coaching staff member that is just, there with a sweatshirt or whatever. I'm sorry, man. I think he did. I think that was a deserved ejection. I was actually waiting for it. As soon as I saw it.
All righty then.
It sucked, but I think he deserved it.
Well, needless to say, I don't think he's going to do it again.
Yeah, that's fair enough. All right, well, that's enough of the highlights and lowlights of that travesty of a game. But let's go on to some listener feedback. As always, we would love it if everybody would be a part of our upcoming podcast episodes by either calling in on our Packers Fan Podcast voicemail line, which can be found at area code 920-3PACK-GO, or you can record your voice and email the recording to feedback@PackersFanPodcast.com, and I guarantee you'll get a much clearer sounding call if you do that. It's actually a lot easier to do than you think. Just find your recording software on your phone, and then you can just hit the old share button and do it via email to feedback@PackersFanPodcast. You can get your feedback right after the Packers-Lions game, and please be sure to include your guess for the final score of the Cowboys at Packers game the following week. The deadline for those calls will be 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Who's our first caller, Wayne?
Go Pack! I'm trying so hard not to sound disappointed. This is Megan. I'm watching Samari Toure dance while I'm recording this to try to pump myself up from his touchdown. Anyways, that was a little bit of a tough loss. I mean, I was glad we kind of stuck with it till the end. Knew it was going to be like a difficult team. Obviously, they're really good. But, yeah, I don't know what we would do without Aaron Jones. That's for sure. That's all I really have to say about him. He's so fun to watch. Big Dog deserves a shout out. That's also all I have to say about that. Aaron, I thought he was like really throwing some good throws, especially in the beginning. Like, he threw a couple really good ones to Jones and Bobby, and I thought Dobbs stepped up. That return by Nixon. It sucked that it got called back, but it was a really good return. And then Jonesy ripped off a couple really good runs, too. Bummer Mason missed it. I don't know, really, if he would have made it. I mean, who knows? If he would have made it, what would have happened? But let's see. We'll get some happy dancing with Jamal next week, hopefully in Detroit. I hope we get a win. I hope we can kind of turn it around. I know it's been a tough season. The only place we can go from here is up. So let's bring on Detroit. Let's back our boys. We have to stay with them through thick and thin, as disappointing and hard as it is to watch. It is probably not that fun to play and lose. And I hope something can light some fire under them. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be a long second half of the season, if we don't kind of turn things up a few notches. So we had a late bye, too, so we need some reset. It seems like they have such good practices, so I don't know what goes on. Some of the stuff, like Quay Walker and the other things, like anything that's like unsportsmanlike conduct and such is within our control and is frustrating. But anyways, we're going to Detroit. Let's go, baby.
Thank you, Megan, for the call. I think the Packers need a win, if for no other reason, so we can hear a little pep in Megan's step, because it is. I almost started crying. Listen to her on that voicemail. She sounds so sad, and I miss the super happy, amped up Megan on the calls each week. How about you, Wayne?
I agree 100%, but it's up to the Packers to win. So it's always good to hear from Megan. The call came in almost immediately after the game, and pointing out that Aaron Rodgers did have a lot of great throws. Shout out to Mercedes Lewis. And the biggest point Megan made was, I don't know what we would do if we did not have Aaron Jones.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I love Dylan. You guys know I love Dylan.
Oh, me too.
But he's more of the power runner, where Jones has the better moves to kind of go the distance. So, yeah, Megan, I hope you cheer up. I hope we all cheer up. Looking forward to hearing from you next week, hopefully after a win in Detroit, because, that's a must-win game. Pretty much a must-win game at this point.
I think we are to that point. Let's go back to the listener line, see who gave us a call at 920-3-PACK, go!
Hey guys, Andre in LA. Sorry I didn't call last week, and man, that was a bummer of a game yesterday. It is definitely going to be one of those seasons. I don't know if you guys noticed, but it feels like at times the games aren't really as competitive as the score indicates. It just looks like we're not a good team this year, unfortunately. There's some things that I like, one of the silver linings is I have Aaron Jones in my fantasy league, so even though he didn't really score a touchdown, got a lot of points. Thank you, good effort. But I don't know what it is. The receivers aren't that good. I'm just gonna be happy that we got some young receivers. One rookie got his first touchdown. The defense, played decent, but Diggs basically, maybe from his Minnesota days, he remembers how to tear up our defense. But we just looked like not a good team. It's very unfortunate. Another turnover again, it just feels like we're totally out of sync. And I'm fine with it. I'm a fan of this team, if I'm being very honest. I'm a fan of this team. We had 3 or 4 seasons in a row where we went to the conference championships. Maybe we just have to take a year, step back, rebuild a little bit more. I don't know what the record's going to look like. I don't know if we're going to get a high draft pick, but maybe I'll start watching college football to get an idea of what we need. But it definitely feels like the protection is not where we want it to be. Even though we're able to move the ball on the run, the defense seems better, but the linebacking core seems slow. It seems like it was so many yards after the catch yesterday. I don't know. There's a lot of things I liked and a lot of things I didn't like. Not a fan of losing, but I still love my team. Green and gold till I'm dead and cold. Andre LA. I don't even have the muster for another Go Pack Go. Just know that I love you guys. Andre and LA.
Love you too, Andre. Thank you so much for giving us a call. And next week, hopefully after a victory, you can have some fervent Go Pack Goes at the beginning and at the end. But we just love hearing from you. And interesting point, Scott, that Andre made about how some of our games, they don't appear to be as competitive as what the score indicates. And I would say definitely for some of the games earlier in the season. But I think this past week's game, the one against the Bills, I think it's the opposite. I think we were a lot more competitive than what the score would show. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. And we're going to get into that a little bit later with something that Troy shared in our community. But I think on paper, this game was one of our strongest offerings in the past 4 weeks. Of those 4 losses, this is the one that was the least embarrassing, which is interesting considering we were playing one of the top offenses in the league. For them to actually finally show up and seem to be putting forth a little bit more effort. It goes back to that whole overconfidence thing I talk about in the Keys to Victory so often. You can never go in overconfident. You can't underestimate any team. Any given Sunday, anything's going to happen. You got to give 110% every time. And unfortunately, we waited 3 weeks too late to do that because we were facing a tough team. You got to do that every single time.
Yeah, we probably played up to the competition, but I hope we learned a lesson to don't play down to any competition, because right now every win is so valuable. And Andre, great reminder that, whatever happens, we still love and support this team, and we're building for the future. Who knows? Maybe when does he graduate? 2 or 3 years? Arch Manning. He could be highly coveted. Another Manning. Maybe this one will go to Green Bay. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. And I'm so glad Aaron Jones helped you out with some fantasy points, Andre. Helping you out.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm with you there, Andre. I'm still going to love the green and gold, even in their poor years. And we were due for one. We've been very, very lucky for the past couple decades or more, couple decades and a half, between Brett Favre and the Aaron Rodgers eras. So we've been kind of long overdue for a not so stellar season. It's just still hard to swallow a little bit. But I love this team. Not going to give up. I've been a fan since I started becoming a fan when the team was awful. So
me too.
And stuck with it, and we'll come around. If it's not this season, it'll be the next. And there you have it.
Hey, there's been 1 or 2 really down years with Aaron Rodgers. I don't think this year is going to be anywhere near that low of a level. I mean, the season's not even half over. I mean, right. Anything can happen. And of course, I picked one of the worst years with Favre to go up to Lambeau, take the family up there for our first ever game at Lambeau Field. I think the season we wrapped up 4-12, and we lost a Monday Night Football to the evil purple freaks from Minnesota. It was just one of those nights. Very cold. I wish I would have known Scott then. He could have taught me all about bundling up. But next time. Next time. Let's see who else sent in a message to us.
All right, you cheddarheads. This is Dan from Indy, a.k.a. Pack Sparrow. You know what? That was a loss, but I swear that was the best game that the Packers have played all season. I was really, just really encouraged by seeing what I saw. There was a balanced attack, 31 rushes to 30 passes, but I think they still need to lean more heavily on the run game. If they had the same game plan the whole last month, I think we'd be looking at 3-1 instead of 0-4. We controlled the clock. There was a 7-minute time of possession advantage. The defense was amazing, especially losing one to injury, Devondre Campbell. Quay Walker was ejected egregiously just for shoving a guy. I mean, big whoop. I think that was a ridiculous call by the officials to eject him just for pushing a practice squad tight end guy. I mean, it was just a shove. It was no big deal. It wasn't a scrum. It wasn't a fight. That's all that happened. And then I also found out that Eric Stokes was benched due to disciplinary reasons. I didn't read much more. They didn't go into it, why he was benched. But, you lose 3 of your defensive starters, and the way the defense still stepped up, that was amazing. I mean, they held Buffalo to only 3 points in the entire second half. And was, as far as the offense goes, all of our top wide receivers were out. Alan Lazard, Cobb's still on IR. Christian Watson was concussed in the first quarter, so they had to adjust their game plan there. But still, for Buffalo, it was their season worst. They allowed 398 yards of offense. So like I said, that's really encouraging to me. I still think the officiating was terrible, but that's across the league, not just in our game. We had 8 penalties for 58 yards. That really killed some momentum, especially when Tunyon and Wayne had his Funyuns ready for Tunyon's touchdown. That ghost offensive pass interference where he barely even touched the guy. Like, the defender's supposed to give them space. They said that 2 or 3 times during the broadcast last night. So I think that was a bunch of bunk. Yeah, Tunyon, then that could have adjusted or swung the momentum of the game. I mean, we only lost by 10 points. That would have closed the gap by 7. Aaron Jones was phenomenal. 143 yards of rushing. Dylan did just the same. He just pounded the rock right in the middle. Aaron Jones ran to the outside. I'm really encouraged going into Detroit next week. It's another road game for us, but I think we're going to go in there and kick some tail. I think we have the potential to go 31-17. Let's go 31-17. Packers win. Go, 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 Pack, go.
Thank you so much, Dan. It's always great to hear from you. Go Pack, go indeed. I love the encouraging, positive outlook you've got going into Detroit. That's really awesome to see. I was very frustrated with the play with Tunyon because I'm not as negative on the refs as you are, Wayne. But I looked at that one. I went, "You got to be kidding me!" Like that just seemed sure. Yeah. He touched him in the face, but it was like such a. I don't know. It just felt so very minor to me. But yeah, the penalties. It's part of our MO. Injuries and penalties. Just really just plague us. 58 yards of penalties just gone.
Ouch.
Yeah. But Dan's with me. He'd like to see him rely on that run game even more. I mean, what's funny to me is that it's a positive that we held their offense to 398 yards. I mean, I understand they're like very powerhouse offense, but 400 yards of offense that's a good amount of offense. But he's right. It's their lowest showing for the year, and the fact that we were able to be the ones to deliver that lowest showing, in week 8. Gives me hope for the possibility of turning this season around. So, how about you, Wayne?
Ever hopeful and ready to turn things around. Just because, we kind of knew we weren't going to win this game this week, but we actually came pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Anything could have happened. And yeah, the Funyuns, they are up there above my studio, unopened, waiting for another week. And I didn't catch Stokes being benched and possibly due to discipline. I don't know what happened there.
I could have swore I saw him on the field.
Well, we did earlier in the game, but maybe he got benched midway. Maybe things were getting a little bit out of hand with him as well as Quay Walker and all of that good stuff. And
somebody, a little chippy out there.
It was definitely chippy out there. Oh my goodness. I couldn't believe it for a team that's not only not in our division, they're not even in our conference. And speaking of ejections, the guy that tackled A.J. Dillon and practically tried to turn him into a pretzel, that's something that could have been called for with being ejected from the game. I don't recall the Bill player that did it, but that was egregious. And I'm so glad that I saw A.J. Dillon back out there a little bit later because it looked bad.
Yeah, I got a little nervous when he was real slow to get up. I was like, please, Not Dylan. We've had too many, and thankfully, it looked like he was able to shake it off. Hopefully it's nothing real bad, and nothing that he's going to aggravate, in Detroit this weekend too. Going to definitely be keeping my eye on him because he's my boy.
And this stretch of 3 road games is just a bit much. I'm going to be so thankful we make it through the bye, and coming out of the bye, we have 3 of our last 4 games are at home. But
yes,
we got to get there first. We did have our weekly poll question in our Facebook group at PackersCommunity.com, as well as on Twitter at PackersFanPod. Making it quick and simple. It was time sensitive. We'll know the answer by tomorrow evening. Will the Packers make a high-level trade before the November 1st deadline, which is at 4 p.m. Eastern on the 1st? Yes or no? Easy peasy. How are you feeling, Scott?
Man, it's hard to say. Like, what do you consider high level? Are you talking like, a AAA player kind of situation? Is that what you mean, high level? Or where does that bar sit?
That's open to your own interpretation. What do you feel would be a high-level trade?
Do I want them to make a high-level trade? Absolutely. Something needs to be shaken up because at this point, what do you have to lose? You know what I mean? Like, you might as well give something a shot. Do I think they will? No. It'll be some weird random guy that we've not heard of before, or it'll be something off of the free agency. Some veteran that was good a while ago and hasn't been heard from for a while. I think it'll be something like that. I don't think a high level trade, unless, man, bring back Adams. Can we do that? I don't know what his contract looks like, but how crazy would it be? Just like, oh, by the way, Devontae's coming back. We talked Cobb into coming back, so we're going to talk Devontae into coming back because the Raiders aren't doing great. Not that we're doing great, but hey, wouldn't that put some life back in the old Packers squad?
That would be bonkers. I don't think there's any way in heck that it could possibly happen. We're not going to give back the draft picks they gave us. That's for sure. But maybe the Raiders just, they want what's best for Davante Adams. And as a gesture of goodwill, if he wants to come back, they'll just say, no worries, and we'll keep paying your check too.
What do you think, Wayne?
I think it all hinges on what we would consider as a high-level trade. I mean, obviously, I think something like Odell Beckham, even if we gave him the money that he would require, I don't think he wants to come to a team with our record.
I don't want him in our locker room.
Really? I think he'd be all right. I do think we're going to make a relatively high-level trade before the deadline on November 1st at 4 p.m. I just don't think it. I think it's going to be more of the type of player you were talking about, somebody that was really good. Maybe we haven't heard from for a while. They're kind of under the radar. But a lot of people think we're not even going to try anything even close to high level because the votes that came in, 81% said no, which leaves 19% that said yes.
And Bill Gardner actually had a comment on this post that kind of echoes my feelings. He says, I hope so. I'm sick of hearing, quote, the Packers are in the mix for a big trade, and then they get traded to a team that's already got the weapons to win. Yeah, it's very, very frustrating. I'm so tired of hearing rumors and, we're talking to this guy and talking to this guy, and then just nothing happens and it goes against our favor. So,
yeah.
Anyway, we had some other awesome comments unrelated to the poll question that were made at the Packers Fan Podcast Facebook community group, which can be found at PackersCommunity.com if you'd like to join in the fun. Aaron Peterson posted a pregame discussion that I somehow missed with Charles Woodson calling out Aaron Rodgers to be more of a leader and pointing fewer fingers. I watched that and just kept nodding while I was watching it. I was like, yeah. That's what I'm talking about. He was talking more about press conferences, but I feel like I want that more on the field. It's one thing to talk negatively in the during the press conferences, which is obviously very public. But I like what Woodson was saying. Like when you make a mistake, say, "Hey, it's all right. Get back up. We'll get it next time," and bringing that positivity and camaraderie back to the Packers squad that we just are not getting, because whenever anybody makes a mistake, all he does is rolls his eyes and breathes real high, and it's starting to be a pet peeve of mine. So be sure to check that out. Also, was it you, Wayne? I thought it was Troy. Maybe it was you. Posted some positive stats from the game that make the loss sting a little less. The Packers led the game in the following areas. This was pretty interesting when you consider we lost by 10 points. The Packers won in turnovers. They won in time of possession. They won in number of first downs. They won in third down percentage. They won in total yards, and they won in rushing yards. We just didn't have the score at the end, which is obviously the most important part. But considering who we were up against, that's some pretty positive stats to be thinking about, especially as we go into a relatively easier game on the road and then some more home games before we go into the bye. So trying to stay positive and look at those fundamentals coming back.
Yeah, I don't think it was me, but then again, I was just trying to find any positivity that I could. So maybe it was, I don't know, but it is great information. I don't think it was me. But
all right. We didn't get any emails this week, but please, if you'd love to drop us an email, we would love to read it for you. As always, your calls, emails, comments, and support are so much a part of the Packers Fan Podcast. Thank you for everything that you guys do. Hey, even when we lose, we still love to hear from you guys. Remember to join the Packers Fan Podcast Facebook community and be part of the conversations at packerscommunity.com.
Now, some people would say that we lost. Other people would say we just didn't have enough points when time ran out. Just needed more time, Scott. Just needed more time. And speaking of
tomato, right?
Funyun, onion, tunyon, whatever. Your 3-5 Green Bay Packers are wrapping up their road trip in Detroit this coming Sunday to play the 1-7 Lions. That's November 6th, 12 noon Central Time. Green Bay leads this series 105 wins to 73 losses and 7 ties. That's a lot of ties. Wow. But when you've been playing each other for over 100 years, I guess it happens. Green Bay is one of 4 teams with a winning record against all of their divisional opponents with 100-plus head-to-head games played. The Cowboys, Chiefs, and Dolphins have also done the same thing. But isn't that good to know that we have a winning record against all our divisional opponents?
That is good to know, but I could have swore the Bears were pulled ahead of us, or have been ahead of us. Am I remembering that? Because
we're ahead of them in the head-to-head. It's that pesky all-time victories record, which is still hovering out there because we need to, so we can take claim to that. But on the other side of the coin, Detroit is one of only 3 teams with a losing record against all of their divisional opponents when there's been over 100 games played. That's sad.
Wow.
And the Chargers and Jets are in the same boat, so misery loves company. And I do have to make my annual mention of the historic Packers at Lions game on December 3rd, 2015, the largest comeback ever in this rivalry, where the Packers overcame a 20-point deficit to win the game 27-23. And we all remember, but it does bear reliving. The Lions appeared to have won the game 23-21, but a face mask penalty was called against them when time expired, gave us that famous untimed play. And on that famous final play, Aaron Rodgers completed a 61-yard Hail Mary to Richard Rodgers. The Packers then took a knee on the extra point, and this was the longest game-winning, game-ending Hail Mary in NFL history. Can I get a Go Pack Go?
Go Pack Go indeed. Actually, when I was preparing for this show, I had to go back and rewatch it.
Of course.
I think I've told the story. I was in a bar watching that game, and we had all gathered up our coats and were pushing in our chairs and all this stuff. And then, all right, they're going to do this one play. We might as well watch it. And then the place just exploded. It's one of my favorite memories of watching the game in a large group of people. It was awesome. Wayne, I've actually got an interesting game I wanted to share with you as well. September 28th. 1964. This was a long time ago, obviously. The game was not nationally televised. It was Packers versus Lions, but it was a very important game for the entire league, actually. The Packers wound up winning this game by a score of 14-10, with both Bart Starr and Paul Hornung running for a touchdown each that game. But what made this game so significant was the fact that it was played on a Monday night. At this time, Monday Night Football was not a thing, and they kind of tried it out. And that game wound up being so popular that the NFL commissioner at that time, Pete Rozelle, began testing playing games on Monday nights, which eventually became a standard 6 years later in 1970. So the Packers are kind of the first, Packers and Lions are the first Monday night football game in NFL history. And I learned a fun fact this week, so I thought that was pretty cool.
That is super cool. Thank you so much for that one, Scott. Checking in on the weather in Detroit. It won't matter. It's indoors. So there we go. What do the Packers have to do this week to get back on the winning train?
All right. I got 3 strategies, 3 keys to a victory. My first one is reboot and reload. It's been a while since the Green and Gold have lost 4 games in a row. That's the first time that's happened since 2016. And if there's ever been a time for a need to shake it off, it's now. We faced our toughest matchup of the season so far, and we're about to face one of our easiest matchups of the season. It's time to start the rebuilding process to dig their way out and try to get a little closer to 500 before the halfway point of the year. As Troy pointed out earlier, there was a lot to be positive about with this game, despite the score not ending up in our favor. The Packers should focus on those positives and move forward as a team instead of looking at the score. At this point, morale is going to be a huge factor for this team. Strategy number 2, prepare for a shootout. I'm predicting this game is going to be a very high-scoring game with lots of back and forth. The key here is going to be endurance on both sides of the ball, especially on offense, when those long, sustained drives are going to be vital for our struggling defense to keep the Lions from scoring. Detroit shouldn't be underestimated. Sure, their last 2 games before Miami, they only scored 6 points total, but they scored 27 this week against Miami, and 45 against Seattle, and 24 against Minnesota, and 36 against Washington, and 35 against Philadelphia, the only undefeated team in the league. This is by no means a walk in the park, and the Packers need to go into this game with the mentality of a must-win situation. Nothing but their best performance, fundamental football, 10 yards at a time. And finally, focus on containing the run. One of Detroit's best strengths right now is their offensive line. Plus, DeAndre Swift, while still not 100% after his injury earlier in the season, is hungry to get more action than he did against Miami. Not to mention the familiar face of Jamal Williams, who I'm sure would love to run right through his former team's defense. Unfortunately, this is also where the Packers are the weakest, so we should expect the play calls to focus quite a bit on the ground. With that said, we should be doing the same thing. This past week, it was great to see the run game utilized a lot more, and we're going to have to fight fire with fire if we want to come out ahead this week. And there you have it.
That is some solid stuff, Scott. Thank you so much for putting those together. And yeah, Jamal Williams. I mean, we couldn't keep all 3 running backs, and well, Jamal is on my fantasy team, but this week I'm rooting for the Packers.
Thank you very much, Wayne. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Captain Obvious.
It is time to move on to our 2022 season wager of fun. Our predictions last week, I predicted that the Bills were going to win 35-14, giving me a differential of 11 points. I kind of just threw numbers out there because I totally expected Wayne to pick the Packers to win because he always does. But for the first time in Packers fan history, he picked the Bills to win 33-17 and wound up with a differential of 6 because the final score was 27-17. So Wayne gets another W. So unfortunately, he's now leading 3-1. I don't even remember. What do I have to do if I lose? I know we're going to make you play Madden. I have to play Pokemon or something.
Right. If you end up losing, you will be playing some Pokemon Go. And we will hammer out the rest of the details. But basically, you're going to have to play a few times during the week, send and receive some Poke gifts. We're going to do a couple of legendary raids together remotely because that's a cool thing you can do. Things like that. And depending on what level you are right now in the game from when you played 4 years ago, whatever it was, if you're really low level, like below 10, you need to go up 2 levels. And it's not that hard. Kind of fun. So we'll see. But just in case.
I mean, there's still plenty of season. We still might be playing Madden. I'm just saying.
I know. I understand that this could be very interesting indeed. How the listeners do with the Wager O Fun picks this week.
We had a couple really close calls. I'm not going to go through all of them because there's quite a list, but David Newman had a differential of 5. Superfan Aaron had a differential of 8. Brett Connor also had a differential of 8. And Dan Dyler, though, coming in with a prediction of Bills 29, Packers 17, which is only a differential of 2 points. He actually got the Packers score exactly right and was only off by 2 with the Bills score. So congratulations to Dan Dyler. You guys all know his voice from this show. So currently, like I said, Wayne is in the lead with our personal little competition here, 3-1. Listener David Newman still is in the lead with 2 wins, and we've got a 3-way tie for second place between Jay Walters, Alex Bartman, and Dan Dyler. And there you have it.
Very good indeed. So let's carry it on to this week, Packers at Lions. I am back on picking the Pack to win 27-19, Scott. 27-19.
All right. I think it's going to be a higher scoring game than that. I'm going to go Packers 30, Lions 21. This is the week that they sound off and are going to start scoring like crazy. So yeah, it's going to be a good game. Remember, everybody, when you call into our Packers fan voicemail, which can be called at area code 920-3PACK-GO, right after the Lions game, please be sure to include your Wager of Fun final score predictions for next week's Sunday game, Cowboys at Packers. Here are some of the early call-ins for the predictions of the score. Let's see. Garrett Stritzel said Packers are going to win 28-24. Esteban said Packers 27, Lions 10. Jay Walters says Packers 27 and Lions 17. And Dan Dyler said Packers 31, Lions 17. And there you have it, man. That got just 4 picks so far. So waiting for everyone to get those in before next week for sure.
I'm just glad everybody's picking a Packers victory. That is very nice indeed, because the NFC North has the Vikings at 6-1, and that is not good for anybody. The Packers are 3-5. The Bears are 3-5, but we own that particular tiebreaker. The Lions 1-6 or 7 or something. They only have 1 win. So, however you shake it up. And the bye weeks coming up this week, a lot of teams on a bye. Cleveland, Dallas, Denver, the Giants, the Steelers, and those hated 49ers. They're all on their bye week this week.
Speaking of the 49ers, Christian McCaffrey sure had a heck of a game this week in San Francisco. I've never seen this happen, and I was actually watching this game. Christian McCaffrey, who by the way is on my fantasy team at the Packers Fan Podcast, scored 3 touchdowns, 1 rushing, 1 receiving, and 1 passing. He had like the trifecta of touchdowns in one game. I've never seen that happen live before. That was a lot of fun to see. Also, the Carolina-Atlanta game was nuts. Did you get a chance to see that game, Wayne, at all?
No, I didn't see it in particular. For the earlier games, I just had the red zone on, so I was just trying to find a game I could really get sucked into, and I couldn't get into one in particular, so I just watched them all. But that was amazing. That one went into overtime, right?
It did, but it was crazy what happened, because it looked like it was just going to be over. And forgive me for not remembering the name of the receiver, but a receiver caught a 60-something yard touchdown pass in the end zone to tie the game, and before the point after. So they tied the game. All they needed was the PAT to win the game.
Okay, and
the receiver removed his helmet in celebration and got a unsportsmanlike penalty, which pushed the extra point back to the 48-yard line, and they missed it. And then the game went into overtime, and Atlanta wound up winning by 3 points.
Ouch.
So they lost that game because of a penalty, a stupid, unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. It was just crazy to see. That guy I'll bet you he had a rough night.
I kind of feel bad for somebody that has to carry that much weight about it. I mean, they should have never been in that particular position, but that's how it shaked out.
Yeah, any given Sunday. All right, I want to remind everybody about my other podcast called The Gaming Outsider, which is all about my favorite thing in the world to do next to football, which is to play video games. We're recording our 421st episode tomorrow, and it will be releasing on Thursday. In this episode, CB, Alyssa, and I are discussing the scariest characters in video games, a little bit of a homage to the Halloween spooky season, although it will be over by the time that episode releases. You'll also hear us talk about new games like Marvel Snap, on mobile, which, Wayne, I need to get you into that game because I think you would like it. And also another one called Atari Mania, which is a collection of little mini games based on classic Atari 2600 games, which looks like a lot of fun. And CB is playing that. I'm looking forward to hearing about it. If you'd like to hear that, you can listen to the podcast the same place you listen to this fine show, or you can head to our website, thegamingoutsider.com.
I thought one of your favorite things to do was mowing the lawn. Is there a video game that's tied to mowing lawns?
It's funny you say that, Wayne. There actually is a game I reviewed for the Gaming Outsider called Lawn Mowing Simulator.
Are you kidding? This is
no,
right
I'm
up
not
your
making
alley.
it up. I'm going to have to send you the review because that game was awesome.
Of course it was. Your lawn is spectacular.
I mowed today, not because I needed the lawn, but because the stupid leaves. It is fall season here and in the Midwest, and man, the leaves, I mowed 2 or 3 hours ago just to get up all the leaves, and it's already covered. Like, I could do it again if I needed to, but it's just, I hate leaves so much.
When's the first big snow come in? And then you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Until the spring. Then they're all soggy and harder to get up.
That's high level in that game when you get to that point. You say value, we say value. Value for value. Thank you for your Patreon support of the show. We really appreciate it. Details for Patreon, as well as the other ways you can help out the show, are at PackersFanPodcast.com/support. Dan Dyler, many thanks for supporting the Packers Fan Podcast at the Jim Ringo level. And Jay Walters, thank you, and Go Pack goes to you for your support at the AR12 level.
And how about our Brett Favre pledgers? Thank you and Go Pack goes to Scott Bors, Miguel Ramirez from the Opposites Attract podcast, Andre in LA, Jeff Summerfield, and Colin Nolan from Ireland. And Go Pack goes and thank yous to our Curly Lambeau patrons, Matt Haig, Hank Davis from the TPE Network, and Joe Christensen. If you too are interested in supporting the show and maybe even becoming a patron of the Packers Fan Podcast, check out the details at PackersFanPodcast.com/support.
The Unofficial Packers Fan Podcast is not affiliated with the NFL or the Green Bay Packers. And we want you to follow the Packers Fan Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you could tell a friend, I mean, we're getting into that season of sharing the love. Share the love about the Packers Fan Podcast.
And also, you can follow us on Twitter. Our handle is at PackersFanPod. Or if you'd like to follow me and my antics on my personal account, it is at GoCastScott. And Wayne's is at Wayne Henderson. And time for Patreon supporter Dan Dyler. He's going to close us out with some great positivity.
All right, this is Dan, a.k.a. Pack Sparrow, and Brett.
Coming in from Tottenham, all the way from London, England. And this is the Go Pack Go.
Go, 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 go.
Go Pack Go!